It's all yours.
Thank you, Lo. Welcome, everybody. I always try to tie in the learning that we do every week to current events, the things that we're going through. And this week will be no exception. If you're on my mailing list or otherwise read my articles, you know I've been writing a lot recently about the sirens, this non-Jewish, un-Jewish ritual of moments of silence for a siren, and my reasons for being against that and for deifying it. Particularly, I want to talk about the way in which they honor soldiers in Israel today, which is very cynical considering that the establishment is the one that is responsible for all of those dead soldiers that we have to honor. They are guilty of sending them into death traps knowingly, willingly, cynically, and then they tell us to stand in silence and reverence and think about them, whatever we're supposed to think about. So I want to, share some Torah that will give us a true perspective on honoring soldiers. Of course, people who are actively risking their lives to fight for the Jewish people are deserving of our respect and honor. And I would say even the Jewish soldiers in the IDF who have their hearts in the right place are also worthy of our honor and respect, even though the institution is not a Jewish institution, but the individuals there, some of them are more awake than others, but most of them, I think, have their hearts in the right place, and they are valiantly trying to fight on behalf of the Jewish people. They're also worthy of our honor and respect. So I'm not really talking about that, but more about the propaganda and the manner in which they ask us to honor certain soldiers in certain ways. So let's see a little bit from the Torah in a place where you might not really expect to find an enduring lesson, but every letter of the Torah has enduring lessons. Sometimes you just have to dig a little deeper to find it. So we'll start today. We're going to do a few sections from Navi. We're going to start today from Shmuel Aleph, Perek Yud Ches. That's Shmuel Aleph, chapter 18, and just do a couple of psukim from here. Psukim Vav and Zayin 6 and 7. This is after David HaMelech, before he was the king, killed Goliath, and he was then appointed to be a general over Shaul's army. He was a general now, leading the Jews into battle against the Plishtim, and he had great success. So the pasuk here says, "Vahi bevoam v'shuv David mehakos es haplishti," and it was when they came, when the Jewish army would come back, when David returned from striking the Plishtim in various battles, Vatetzena hanoshim mikol arei Yisrael, and the women would go out from all the cities of Israel, lashir, to sing, v'hamacholos, to sing and dance, likras Shaul HaMelech, to greet Shaul the king. Shaul, of course, was the king who was victorious in these battles. David was the one leading them, at least some of the armies, into battle. So the women would come out and greet them. The supim, the simcha, uvish shalishim, with harps and cymbals and joy, various musical instruments. Vata'anena hanoshim hamasachakos, and the women who are rejoicing would speak up. Vatomarna, and they would say that they made a song. Hika Shaul ba'alafav, Shaul struck by the thousands. Shaul killed the enemy by the thousands. David Rivivosav, and David killed by the tens of thousands. And it goes on to say that this instigated jealousy from Shaul to David. This is one of the reasons, and one of the main reasons, that Shaul started to become jealous of David and afraid that David would eventually take over the kingdom from him, and all the events that followed from there. It started with the women coming out and praising Shaul. Shaul was a valiant warrior and fighter. He killed the enemy by the thousands, but David killed them by the tens of thousands. Now let's go to the very end of Shmuel. This is now Shmuel Beis, Perek Chaf Gimel, chapter 23. This is the second to last Perek in Shmuel, and it seems to be really a boring Perek. People ever study it. They don't study it in the Jewish day schools, because if they study Navi at all, this is not something that they feel really worthy of people being taught, even though it was written by prophets. So there must be something there. So let's see what's actually here. We're going to start in Perek Chaf Gimel, chapter 23, in Pasuk Ches, verse 8. Second. Here. There's a parallel section in Divrei Hayamim, which we're not going to do today, but here what it's talking about is the different warriors, different officers that David had, including warriors in his army, names people that we don't know anything else about except for the fact that they are mentioned here. So if you are reading this, we would be tempted to just sort of glide through it and not think much about it. So let's see what's actually here. Eilish Shmos HaGiborim Asher LeDavid. These are the names of the warriors that war to David. Yoshev Basheves, that sat in the place of meeting. So Rashi explains that this was the Sanhedrin, and we learn from here that not only were these people physical warriors going out and fighting the enemy, but they were also spiritual leaders. They were spiritual leaders. They were rabbis. They were great Torah scholars. They were able to handle both. If you think about the soldiers of the world, the greatest soldiers of Russia, the United States, other parts of the world. What's your image of a goyish soldier, a big zhluk, a guy who sits in the gym all day, working out, ripped with muscles, a giant, right? Martial arts expert, etc. Right? The action hero movie. Is he necessarily a wise person? Is he a scholar? Is he a well-rounded person? Likely not, right? And he has to dedicate all of his time to working out, learning how to fight, practicing the tools of the trade of war. And he's not necessarily a great thinker or a great scholar, but the warriors that David had were also great Torah scholars. Very interesting. So it goes on here. Tach Gemoni, Rosh Hashalishi. So a man by the name of Tach Gemoni was the head of the three. We had, again, in a parallel section in Divrei Yamim, it names three warriors. It was like a group of three that were particularly outstanding warriors that David had. And then there was a group of 30 that were also great warriors, but lesser. They didn't measure up to the three. And it keeps on saying that these were great, but they didn't quite measure up to the three greatest ones. So he was the head of the three, the greatest warrior. Who Adino Ha'etzni. He was also Adino Ha'etzni. He had more than one name. So the commentaries here explain that this is to indicate from the word Aden, gentle, that when it came to his Torah studies, he was very gentle. In the base medrash, where he was learning Torah and teaching Torah and fighting about Torah, he was gentle. He was pliant. If somebody had a better argument than him, he didn't say, "I'm bigger and stronger than you, so you have to bend to my will." He was an honest person, and he was gentle in Torah learning. But on the battlefield, he was a powerful warrior. Al shmona me'os chalal b'pam echas. He would strike 800 corpses at one time. He would strike 800 people dead at one shot. That was his claim to fame over here. He would go out to battle and kill 800 at a time. The parallel passage in Divrei Yamim, it says he would strike 300 with one strike of the spear, and his hand, it goes on that his hand didn't get tired. So the commentaries deal with the seeming contradiction. Was it 800 or 300? And the easiest way of resolving it is that it was 800 total, but he could kill 300 at a time without even getting tired. The spears were very heavy. Imagine swinging the spear around a lot, of heavy spear, all those dead bodies. It's very hard work, but he didn't get tired. And overall, he would kill 800 at a shot. Okay. The Acharov, after him in the list of great warriors, El Azar ben Dodo ben Achosi. Okay, the man by the name of El Azar, the son of his uncle Ben Achochi, rather. Ben Achochi, that was his father's name. Bishlosha Hagiborim im David, he was among the three warriors that were with David. The Charfam ba Plishtim, when they humiliated the Plishtim, Nesfu Sham la Milchama, they gathered there for war. Vayalu Ish Yisrael, and the men of Israel went up to fight. Who come? He got up. Vayach ba Plishtim ad Yaga Yado, and he struck the Plishtim until his hand got tired. Okay, just from swinging his weapons around, that finally wore him out. But Tidbak Yado el Hacherev, its hand became cloven to the sword, just from the sweat and the blood and swinging the sword around so much in the battle. His hand eventually became attached to the sword. By Yas Hashem Teshua Gedola by Yamahu, and Hashem did a great salvation on that day. The Am Yashuvu Acharav Ach Lifashet, and the people returned after him, after this warrior who led them in the battle, to also strip the enemies, to spoil them. So he was also a great warrior, although important to note that we don't take credit for our victories because we are mighty warriors. It's not fathomable that any human being, especially manual fighting, he's not using bombs from a plane, he's not using automatic weapons and rockets, he's using a sword, he's killing people one shot at a time, could kill 800 warriors like him in any battle without miracles, without Hashem doing it for him. It's not possible. If 800 people just rush him at the same time, we would think they would be able to overwhelm him. It's not physically, humanly possible for one person to do this unless Hashem is doing miracles. So even though he was mighty and he is praised for this, the Torah here is emphasizing the fact that Hashem is the one doing the miracles for him. Let's skip ahead a little bit later in the chapter. Pasuk Chaf, verse 20. Just do a few more here. Ubenayahu ben Yehoyada ben Ishchayel Rav Pa'alim Mikavsiel. Another one of David's warriors was Benayahu ben Yehoyada ben Ishchayel, which could mean the son of a great warrior, or he himself was a great warrior. Rav Pa'alim, a man of great actions. Mikavsiel, the name of the place. Huhika as Shnei Ariel Moab. He struck the two giants of Moab. Moab apparently had two famous giants. And he also went down and struck a lion in the middle of a pit on a snowy day. Mepharshim explain that lions in a confined pit are going to be even more difficult to fight, and on a snowy day, lions are going to be even more difficult to fight, especially because a human being on a cold, snowy day, he's not going to be able to be as active, as powerful. So the lion had every advantage, aside from the fact that it was a lion, against a human being, and nevertheless, he was able to strike the lion dead. But that's not the end of his feats. V'huhika as Ish Mitzri. He also struck the Egyptian man, Ish Mara, a man of great appearance. They also had a very great warrior. Ubiyad HaMitzri Chanis, in the hand of this Egyptian was a spear. Vayered Elav Bashavet. And this Jewish warrior, Binayahu, went down to meet him in battle with simply a rod, a stick. So it was a stick against a spear. Vayigzol as Achanis Miyad HaMitzri. And he swiped the spear from the hand of the Egyptian, Vayahargeu Bachaniso, and he killed him with his own spear. An incredible act of valor and heroism that we would expect to see in an action movie, but not in real life. Ela Asa Binayahu ben Yehoyada. This was done by Binayahu ben Yehoyada, below Shame Bishlosha Hagibar, and he had a name among the three warriors, meaning the three warriors respected him, but he was on a lower level. He didn't measure up to, he was one of the 30 warriors, but he wasn't in that upper echelon of three warriors, in spite of all of these feats that we can't even fathom anybody doing today. Even if you gave somebody all the modern weapons of the world, you couldn't expect a soldier to be able to do what these people did. These were incredible warriors, and they are praised for this. Before explaining the point that I'm trying to bring out, in the meantime, try to think on your own what it might be and how it ties into contemporary times. Let's do a short passage from Divrei Hayamim. Again, this is not really widely studied at all. I think this is the least studied book in all of Tanakh, especially the first part where it's mostly just names. So there's a similar section here about the three warriors and the 30 warriors. This particular section I'm going to read is just one pasuk. It's from Perek Yud Beis, chapter 12, and it's pasuk Yud Daled, which is 14. And this is listing the warriors that were with David when he went to Tsiklag to fight Amalek, who had taken his family hostage, and he went and he rescued them. So it's talking about the various tribes that were with him, and it says, Eile mi b'nei Gad, Rashi Atzava. These are from the children of Gad, the heads of the army. Echad lemeya hakatan. The smallest of them, one of them would strike 100 of the enemy dead. That was the weakling. That was the lowest of the soldiers. He would strike 100 of the enemy. The Agadol la'olef, and the greatest one would strike 1,000. Okay, and this is a fulfillment, Rashi explains, of the blessing, the blessings that the Jews get for keeping the Torah. Of course, this is a miracle. As mighty as these people might have been, it's still humanly impossible that they could have done this, certainly not have expected to do this, so they shouldn't take credit for it. It was Hashem doing this. This was the fulfillment of the blessing. When the Jews are keeping the Torah, 5 Jews would be able to chase 100 of the enemy, and 1,000 of us would, and 100 of us would be able to chase 10,000 of the enemy, myriads of the enemy's away. So why are the soldiers being praised? They're praised because they were striking lots and lots and lots of the enemy dead. When in modern Israel have we praised, or as the entity known as the State of Israel, praised our soldiers for killing more of the enemy? Do we even know any of our soldiers that are famous for killing 10 terrorists, 100 terrorists, 1,000 terrorists, for shooting down 5 planes, for committing some act of valor? I'm sure there are such people, maybe not in such great numbers, but there are people who have slaughtered a lot of our enemies. Why are they not celebrated? Why are they not famous? Who does Israel celebrate? They celebrate the dead. They celebrate the handicapped soldiers. Somebody sent me a propaganda video yesterday to rouse people to be proud of the IDF, showing soldiers with one leg dancing because they got the leg blown off. We're celebrating our wounded, handicapped soldiers. That's what we're celebrating. God forbid we celebrate the soldiers who are successful. And I'm not looking down. I mean, any soldier, God forbid, could be wounded or killed. It's not their choice. But the point is that the establishment is choosing to rouse our emotions, to be proud of the wounded soldiers, the dead soldiers, not the ones who are slaughtering the enemy. We're ashamed of those soldiers. We don't want to be proud of those soldiers. Those soldiers are war criminals. They're committing genocide. They'll be prosecuted by the international courts. We're ashamed that we ever have to kill an enemy. We have to apologize to the world for killing an enemy. We're certainly not going to celebrate the soldiers who are the best and most successful at killing the enemy. So we celebrate the wounded and handicapped soldiers, trying to score pity points with the rest of the world and make us proud. Then in spite of the fact that we're all having our limbs blown off, we're still proud, we're still fighting. That's the message that the Erev Rav are sending today. Whereas the Torah says, no, we celebrate living soldiers. Of course, we honor the dead soldiers. Of course, we honor those who gave sacrifices. But that's not what the Torah is celebrating for all time. It's celebrating by name. These people were famous. They were publicly known. Today, if a soldier kills 1,000 terrorists, believe me, they're not going to let you know who he is. They don't want the enemy to know who he is. They don't want the world court to know who he is. They don't want anybody to know who he is. They'll keep him anonymous. These people were famous. They were known. The women were singing in the streets, praising these soldiers for their acts of valor. That's what we should be celebrating. If we're going to celebrate the IDF at all, it should be for smashing the enemy without apologizing. And that's the end of the propaganda. I mean, if you study the Torah, that's how you deprogram yourself and other people from the brainwashing. It's only through the Torah. It's not with logical arguments. It's through studying the Torah. Why do I have a clear head? Because I let the Torah inform me. Okay? That's how we're supposed to form our opinions. That's the lesson from Navi for today. Now let's do. There was one from Marion. Can you elaborate more? Why is it such a problem to honor heroes? It's not a problem to honor heroes. Just choose the right heroes and the right way of honoring them. I mean, the Navi also was honoring the heroes. It was honoring the people for fighting our enemies, for being Torah scholars. We honor them. We honor the people who are valiant warriors who actually were successful and killed our enemies. We have respect for any Jews going out to fight our enemies. But when you're choosing to make videos or to honor people by name, why are we picking out the ones that were blown to bits? I mean, why is it more worthy of honor to be blown to bits than it is to not be blown to bits and to slaughter the enemy? Like, why are we honoring people? Why are we choosing specifically the people who lost their limbs and saying these are the examples of people why are we honoring the fact that they were injured or killed? Again, we're sorry they were injured and killed. We'll do everything we can to support them. But why are they more worthy of honor just because they were injured or killed? As if there's something virtuous in being injured or killed. That's really the subliminal message here. There's something virtuous about dying for the state. There's something virtuous about having your limbs blown off for the state and still continuing to dance and sing for the sake of the state. It's a form of Molech worship. It's not about vanquishing the enemy. It's about serving the state and sacrificing for the state. And that's something that's sick and psychotic.